Chapter 4, The Way Down is the Way Forward. Featuring Jesus, Paul, and the surprising power of humility. There's a moment that catches me off guard every time, when my child asks me to carry them, and then falls asleep on my shoulder. That weight, that trust, that warmth and exhaustion and vulnerability. It's an honor but also a burden. And in that burden, something surprising happens. I slow down. I quiet myself. I stop trying to control the world and just carry someone else through it. It's not glamorous, it's not efficient, but it is holy. This is the paradox of fatherhood. The deeper you go into it, the less it's about you. And somehow, that's where the joy starts to grow. It's also the paradox at the center of Christianity, that the one who had all power laid it down to serve. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant. Philippians 2:5-7. This is not the wisdom of the world. It's not about winning, asserting, or conquering. It's about descending, not as a failure, but as an act of love. Humility in the minivan. No one claps for the dad who folds laundry. No one writes songs about assembling furniture at 11:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve. No one nominates you for sainthood when you scrape spaghetti off the wall without losing your mind. But maybe those are the moments that actually shape us. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 1 that God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. That what the world sees as weakness, God sees as strength. Fatherhood is full of these hidden strengths. The ability to slow your voice instead of raising it. The choice to listen instead of lecture. The decision to apologize even when you're the grown-up. These don't make headlines, but they build character. And more importantly, they build trust. Jesus, the foot washer. There's a moment in John's Gospel that still undoes me every time I read it. It's the night before Jesus will be arrested. He knows what's coming. Betrayal, injustice, pain. His time is short. So what does he do? He gets up from dinner, wraps a towel around his waist, kneels down and washes his disciples' feet. Feet. Dusty, tired, likely calloused feet. The feet of men who would, within hours, either betray him, deny him, or run away. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. John 13:14. This is not metaphorical. This is not symbolic leadership. This is actual, literal serving. And he says, go and do likewise. A dad and the dirty socks. I once found myself kneeling on the floor of my son's room cleaning up a pile of laundry I had asked him to pick up 4 times already. I was muttering under my breath, equal parts exhausted and self-righteous. Then I saw his socks, crumpled, stained, smelled like betrayal. I nearly threw them straight into the sun, but something held me back. Maybe it was the image of Jesus, kneeling to wash feet that weren't clean, and wouldn't stay clean, because he loved the ones who walked in them. Or maybe it was the whisper in my heart that said, you're not above this. And I realized I was still cleaning the room, but I was no longer muttering. I was no longer trying to prove anything. I was serving, and strangely, I felt peaceful. The mirror of fatherhood. Fatherhood has a way of holding up a mirror to your ego. You think you're patient, until someone puts syrup in the DVD player. You think you're wise, until your toddler asks, why does God let mosquitoes exist? You think you're strong, until you haven't slept in 3 nights and someone cries because their yogurt is the wrong kind of cold. What do you do with that mirror? Some days I want to break it, to defend my image of myself as competent, impressive, spiritually mature. But on better days, I let the mirror become a window. I stop trying to be admired and start trying to be available. That shift, from how do I look to how can I love, is the spiritual heart of both the gospel and good fathering. It's what Paul meant when he said, love does not boast, it is not proud, it is not self-seeking. 1 Corinthians 13:4-5. Downward mobility. Most philosophies of the ancient world, Stoicism included, taught the path of ascent, master your emotions, discipline your mind, rise above your suffering. But Jesus doesn't climb the ladder, he flips it. He says the first shall be last. He blesses children, not rulers. He chooses fishermen, not philosophers. He dies naked and alone, and calls that victory. For dads like us, this turns the world upside down in the best way. Because success, by this standard, is not about prestige, control, or being the hero. It's about laying down our lives, not in grand gestures, but in daily, quiet faithfulness. It's carrying a child, holding their hand, staying up late to talk when you'd rather sleep. It's choosing to be last so they feel seen. That's not weakness. That's love. With skin on. When God got small, The story of the incarnation is not just a theological marvel, it's a cosmic gut punch to every form of pride and posturing. God doesn't show up as a conquering hero or an ethereal sage. He comes as a baby, vulnerable, hungry, needing to be held. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. John 1:14. Not metaphorically, literally. He came into the world through blood and screaming and the disorienting flood of newborn light, just like our kids did. And if you've ever held a newborn at 2 a.m. with bleary eyes and a sore back, wondering how someone so small can produce so much laundry and existential awe, then you're already beginning to glimpse the incarnation. God made himself interruptible. God made himself held. God made himself needy. And in doing so, he dignified all of it. Not just the miraculous, but the mundane. This doesn't feel like ministry. I once sat in a church pew while a friend gave an eloquent sermon about sacrifice, purpose, and laying your life down for others. Meanwhile, I had spent the entire morning trying to convince my daughter to wear socks. I had goldfish crackers in my pocket and a sticker stuck to my jeans. I hadn't prayed in silence. I hadn't journaled. I hadn't cracked open a single theological tome. I had just survived. And I remember thinking, this doesn't feel like ministry. But maybe, this is the most honest form of it. Because Jesus didn't stay in the clouds dispensing wisdom. He stooped. He didn't just tolerate our humanness, he entered it. So maybe, just maybe, changing a diaper is a holy act. Making waffles counts as discipleship. Reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar for the 84th time is a kind of prayer. Not because those acts are glamorous, but because they are incarnational. They say, I'm here with you for you, just like he said. Fatherhood as becoming. A lot of dads I know worry about losing themselves in parenthood. We wonder, will I lose my sense of identity? Will I become invisible? Will I still matter if I'm not accomplishing big things? Here's the radical idea buried in Philippians 2. He emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, and therefore God exalted him. Phil 2:7-9. Emptiness was not the end, it was the beginning. Jesus didn't become less by serving. He became more revealed, more radiant, more himself. And the same can be true for us. When I carry my child upstairs at night, exhausted but present, I am not disappearing. I am becoming. When I take the form of a servant, I'm not erasing who I am. I'm stepping into who I'm meant to be. Dad fail #19, the Great Sock War. There was an evening not long ago when I completely lost my cool over socks. Specifically the fact that my child wouldn't put them on. Not couldn't, wouldn't. He was lounging on the stairs like a tiny Roman emperor declaring, "My feet are free now." I, humble servant of the empire, had asked nicely, 3 times, then not so nicely, twice. Eventually I exploded, "Why is this happening? They're just socks!"
You're being loud and your face looks like a tomato.
Why didn't you want to wear socks? Sometimes they make me feel trapped.
The power of small surrenders. I used to think humility was a virtue for the naturally meek. Now I know, humility is a daily decision, especially for dads. It's the decision to listen first, say sorry first, let go of control, ask questions instead of delivering answers, admit when we're in over our heads. Humility is not about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "A really humble man will not be a sort of greasy, smarmy person. He will not be thinking about humility, he will not be thinking about himself at all. He'll be thinking about others, he'll be thinking about what they need, how they're feeling, and what it means to be a safe place for someone smaller and newer to the world." Fatherhood puts that choice in front of us hourly. What our kids remember. Years from now, our children may not remember the arguments we won, the rules we enforced, the impressive things we accomplished, but they will remember. Whether they felt safe with us, whether we laughed, whether we knelt down, looked them in the eye, and took their questions seriously, whether we could admit when we were wrong. These are the fingerprints of humility, not weakness, not passivity, but strength expressed in gentleness. Takeaway. Quote, "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant." Jesus, Mark 10:43. Reflection. Prompt. Where do you feel tempted to assert control in your parenting? What would it look like to lead with humility instead? Not by giving up influence but by earning deeper trust. Chapter summary. The way down is the way forward. Big idea. In a world that rewards strength and status, fatherhood, like the life of Jesus, invites us to something deeper. Humility. Not humiliation, but the quiet courage to serve, to listen, to bend down when the world says to stand tall. Key philosophical shift, from power to presence, from pride to service, from controlling outcomes to cultivating trust. Spiritual anchor. Jesus didn't just talk about love, he washed feet. He didn't cling to glory, he emptied himself. As dads, we're called to do the same in small and visible ways, through diaper changes, apologies, patience, and the sacred act of making waffles. Dad fail wisdom, we will mess up. We will yell about socks. But humility is what allows us to say sorry, laugh about it later, and build something stronger than control, connection. Final reflection. You don't become less of yourself by serving. You become more fully the dad your children will remember, and the man God is shaping you to be.